They fired me 19 days before my retention bonus paid out. 6 weeks later, they were paying me 4 times more. For 11 years, I was the only engineer who maintained the billing system at a regional insurance company. The system was older than some of my coworkers. It ran the premium calculations for about 400,000 policies, and it had opinions. I knew all of them. When the company finally started migrating to a modern platform, they offered me a $30,000 retention bonus to stay through the cutover payable December 15th. I signed, I stayed, I worked nights during the test migrations. I updated every wiki, documented every batch job, and wrote a 40-page run book for the quarterly close, because I am not a monster. Then a new CFO arrived with a mandate to cut costs, looked at a status report that said the migration was 90% complete, and decided my role was redundant. They eliminated my position on November 26th, 19 days before the bonus vested. 19. The severance paperwork arrived the same afternoon, and they wanted it signed by Friday. I had a lawyer look at it instead. We struck one clause I signed, and I left cleanly. On my way out, I offered 2 weeks of knowledge transfer to the vendor taking over. The CFO declined in writing. The vendor has it covered, he said. I want to be clear about what I did next, which is nothing. I didn't touch a thing, I didn't withhold a password or delete a file. My documentation was complete and accurate, because the documentation was never the problem. Documentation tells you what the system does. It does not tell you why, and the why was 15 years of regulatory patches, grandfathered rate tables, and one infamous rounding rule from 2011 that exists because of a settlement with the state insurance board. In January, the renewal batch ran. Premium recalculations came out wrong by a few cents per policy. A few cents across 400,000 policies in an industry where regulators audit billing accuracy. Reconciliation failed. The vendor burned 3 weeks trying to reverse engineer the rounding rule from my documentation, which faithfully described what it did and not the legal reason it could never be changed. The migration slipped a quarter. The old system had to run another full cycle, and not one person in the building could operate the quarterly close. My phone rang in early February. The CFO himself, very friendly, asking if I would come back for a little consulting. I had a limited liability company registered by then because I had been expecting the call since November. My rate was $275 an hour, 20-hour weekly minimum, 3-month minimum engagement, invoiced up front. He laughed and said that was 4 times what I used to cost. I agreed that it was and wished him luck. He called back 9 days later after the second failed close attempt. He did not negotiate. Over the next 5 months, they paid my little company about $118,000. The bonus they saved by cutting me loose early was $30,000. The math has been independently verified by everyone I have ever told this story to. I ran their quarterly close, I trained the vendor properly, and I shepherded the migration to an actual finish, because I take pride in my work even when the client is the reason the work exists. On my final invoice, I added one last line item. Knowledge transfer offered November, declined. Quantity 1, price $0. Accounting asked me to take it off because it kept making the controller laugh during sign-off. I billed them a revised invoice at my hourly rate. New manager said the call script was mandatory, word for word, no exceptions. So I read every single word. I worked tech support for a regional internet provider, and for 6 years I was their best number. Shortest average handle time on the floor, highest customer satisfaction. A little wall of those cheap plastic trophies they hand out instead of raises. My secret was simple. I treated the official call script as a map instead of a cage. Customer with an outage got a fix, not a speech. Then our supervisor retired, and corporate sent us a replacement who had never taken a support call in his life, but had strong opinions about brand consistency. In his first week, he audited my calls and wrote me up. The violation was script deviation. I had skipped the promotional segment while helping a man whose internet had been down for 3 days. The man was calling from a parking lot outside a coffee shop. I decided offering him a premium speed upgrade on the connection he did not have might come across as hostile. The new manager disagreed, and at the next team meeting, he made it policy. The script is a mandatory. Word for word. No exceptions, no judgment calls. Deviations would be written up, and 3 write-ups meant termination. He asked if everyone understood. I said I understood completely, and for once in my life, I meant it. The thing about our script is that nobody had ever actually read the whole thing out loud. It was written by a marketing committee in 2019. Read in full, it runs almost 4 minutes before troubleshooting begins. There is a 60-second greeting that names the company 3 times. There is a data privacy disclosure. There is a promotional segment with 3 rotating offers, a loyalty program pitch, and an invitation to a customer survey. And the script says these come before we diagnose anything, because the committee assumed we would skim. I stopped skimming. A woman called to update her billing address, a 40-second task. She received the full 4-minute experience, including a pitch for the gaming bundle. She asked if I was a robot. The script does not contain an answer to that question, so I returned to the nearest approved line, which was about the loyalty program. My handle time tripled by Wednesday, and because the floor's best closer was now the floor's slowest agent, the queue backed up, and hold times went from 4 minutes to 40. The rest of the team watched me get praised in the Friday meeting for perfect script adherence, the only metric our new manager cared about. The following Monday, all 30 of them went word for word too. I want to describe what an outage day sounds like when an entire call center is legally required to offer speed upgrades to people with no internet. Complaints to corporate went up 900%. Customers recorded the calls and posted them. One clip of an agent reading the survey invitation to a sobbing small business owner got 40,000 views before corporate noticed. An executive flew in. There was an emergency meeting where our manager explained that we were all being deliberately obtuse, and the executive asked him to clarify which words in mandatory, word for word, and no exceptions we had gotten wrong. The policy died that afternoon. The replacement memo said agents should exercise professional judgment, and I asked for that in writing before I took my next call. I have it laminated. Our manager was reassigned to special projects, which at our company is where managers go to stop happening to people. My handle time is back to best on the floor. Nobody audits my calls anymore. The trophies remain plastic. Corporate banned all personal items from our desks. They had no idea how much of the office we personally owned. I work in a 12-person satellite office of a very large company. Corporate thinks of us the way you think of a storage unit, which is to say fondly, at tax time, and never in the budget. Over the years, we quietly furnished our own workplace. Karen brought the good coffee machine after the office one died in 2022, and its replacement request entered a procurement queue that has never been seen again. Doug bought a fridge at a yard sale. 4 of us brought second monitors from home because the company issues 1 laptop screen and our work is spreadsheets all day. Marcus owned the only HDMI cable that agreed with the conference room TV. I supplied the label maker and the small toolbox that has repaired the printer roughly 200 times, because the printer is also from 2022 and also has a replacement request in the queue. Half the ceiling lights died over one winter, so 3 people brought desk lamps. None of this was ever discussed. It was just the immune system of a neglected office quietly doing its job. Then a new regional director did a walkthrough. He spent 40 minutes with us, which we later learned was a record, and his only takeaway was that the office looked cluttered and insufficiently corporate. That Friday, we received a memo. Effective Monday, the clean desk policy would be strictly enforced. All personal items must be removed from the premises. Anything remaining would be disposed of. No exceptions. The phrase "no exceptions" does something to a room full of people who have read this subreddit. We did not argue. We complied. Friday afternoon, we held what Doug called the Great Repatriation. The coffee machine went home with Karen. The fridge left in Doug's truck, with the communal oat milk distributed to mourners. Monitors unplugged, lamps boxed. Marcus coiled his HDMI cable with the ceremony of a man folding a flag. I took my label maker in my toolbox, and on the way out, I peeled my labels off the supply shelves, because the labels were also, technically, personal property. Monday was quiet and dim. Tuesday, the printer jammed, and the office watched it happen the way you watch weather. Wednesday, the regional director returned, this time with actual clients, for the quarterly demo in the conference room. The TV displayed nothing. because the cable that talks to it lives at Marcus's house now. Its estimate for a replacement was 3 weeks. Standard queue. The demo ran on a laptop turned sideways on the table with 8 adults crowded behind it like a surprise party. It did not go well. The director asked, with some volume, why nobody had told him the office had no working equipment. So we told him, politely and specifically, with dates and ticket numbers. The coffee machine that was Karen's, the fridge that was Doug's, the monitors, the lamps, the cable, the toolbox. He had banned roughly $9,000 of infrastructure that his own budget had declined to provide for 3 years. The procurement request to replace what walked out the door that Friday is, as far as anyone knows, still in the queue, behind the printer from 2022. 2 weeks later, the policy was clarified. It now applies only to non-functional decorative items. Karen's coffee machine returned to a small ceremony with applause. Marcus's cable got a Velcro strap labeled "Property of Marcus, Do Not Covet," printed on my label maker, which is back too. The director was transferred in the spring. He took his framed motivational poster with him. It was, we agreed, the only item in the building that had ever actually been decorative. Payroll docked me 12 minutes for being late once, so I started giving them exactly the minutes they paid for. I'm the facilities tech for a property management company. 6 buildings, 1 of me. For 9 years, the arrangement was unofficial but understood. I came in 20 minutes early to fire up the boilers so tenants had heat by the time they woke up. I answered my personal phone at 10 at night when a pipe burst. I drove my own truck between buildings without billing a mile. In exchange, nobody watched my clock. If I rolled in late after a dentist appointment, the world kept turning because everyone knew the ledger between me and that company was lopsided in their favor and always had been. Then the office manager position turned over, and the new one, Sandra, ran payroll like a casino counts chips. My second week under the new regime, I caught a flat tire on the highway and clocked in 12 minutes late. Sandra docked my pay $14 in change and attached a written warning for time theft. Time theft. I read that phrase about 30 times. Then I asked her calmly to confirm the policy. She said, and I will treasure this sentence forever, we pay you for your scheduled minutes, and you work your scheduled minutes, nothing more and nothing less. Nothing less, sure, but also nothing more. The next morning, I clocked in at 8:00 and 0 seconds. The boilers got switched on at 8:01 instead of 7:40, which means the buildings got warm around 9:30 instead of 7. The tenant calls started Tuesday, and they didn't go to my personal phone anymore because my personal phone is a personal item, and this is a professional arrangement now. They went to the office line, Sandra's line. After hours, my personal phone has a lovely new voicemail that politely directs emergencies to the company's emergency call-out service, which, per my contract that apparently we are all reading closely now, bills at time and a half with a 4-hour minimum. A Saturday night lockout that I used to fix in 10 minutes as a favor now costs the company $190 minimum invoiced. A burst pipe at 9 p.m. on a Sunday is 4 hours at time and a half even if I am home in 40 minutes. I also stopped driving my truck between buildings. The company vehicle requires a scheduling form with 2 days' notice. So travel between sites now happens at walking speed through a booking system on the clock. By the end of the first month, the overtime and call-out budget had tripled. By the end of the second, Sandra's boss, the regional property director, called a meeting to find out why the maintenance line item had grown a second head. Sandra explained that I was abusing the system. I agreed with her completely, then handed the director my written warning for 12 minutes, the $14 doc, and a 1-page summary of everything I used to do for free with the going market rate next to each item. The total was a little north of $19,000 a year. The director read it twice, looked at Sandra, and asked the kind of question that has no safe answer, which was, "You charged him $14 for this?" My doc was repaid that week. The warning came out of my file. We now have a written flexibility agreement. My early boiler starts are paid prep time. There's a grace window for clocking in. And after hours, favors earn comp time instead of nothing. I still come in early most mornings because the tenants were never the ones who charged me $14. The difference is that now it's on the timesheet. Sandra approves it every Friday, 7:40. right at the top in writing where the minutes count. My manager put his name on my biggest deal ever, so I let him keep it and everything that came with it. I sold logistics software business to business, the kind of deal that takes most of a year and a small piece of your soul. In 23, I landed the biggest contract of my career. A freight company, $1.1 million over 3 years. 9 months of work. Demos at 6 in the morning to catch their ops team between shifts. I learned to golf badly but sincerely. The week before signing, my manager Dave moved the account to himself in the CRM. There's a button for it, apparently, if you're a manager. The deal closed under his name. His commission? About $42,000. His President's Club trip. At the club dinner, he gave a speech about persistence and thanked, I am quoting, everyone who played a part. I went to the VP of sales with 9 months of emails, call logs, and calendar invites. The VP listened carefully and explained that the CRM is the system of record. The system of record, said Dave. He suggested I view it as a team win. So I made a decision that afternoon that I want to be clear was completely calm. No anger. Anger is loud and expensive. I decided that if the system of record said the clients belonged to Dave, then Dave should have them. All of them, including their problems, their renewal calls, their 2 a.m. freight emergencies, and their renewals. I interviewed quietly at our biggest competitor. My state doesn't enforce non-competes. My contract had no non-solicit worth the paper, and I had 11 accounts worth of relationships that existed because I returned phone calls at 11 p.m. The competitor offered a better base, accelerated commissions for 18 months, and my same territory. I resigned politely, thanked Dave for his mentorship in front of witnesses, and handed over immaculate account notes, because the notes were never the asset. I was the asset. The freight company's renewal came up 8 months later. Their CTO called my personal cell, confused, asking why the account manager, Dave, needed the integration architecture explained to him on a renewal call for a system he had supposedly sold them. I said I couldn't discuss my former employer, which is both professional and the single most damning sentence in the English language, and mentioned where I work now. Their procurement invited us to bid the same week. We won. It was not close. Over the next 14 months, 8 of my 11 former accounts churned to my new company, one by one, at their own contract milestones through their own procurement processes. No secrets, no files, nothing actionable. Clients follow the person who answers. That is the entire trick. Dave missed quota 4 consecutive quarters, was moved from manager back to individual contributor, and then out. Word travels in our industry the way smoke travels in a kitchen. The kicker arrived this spring. My new company was hiring for my team. I'm the manager now, and his application appeared in my queue. I did not reject it. Rejection sends an email, gives closure, lets the system of record move on. His application sits in the status called under review. It has been under review for 7 months. I check on it every Friday afternoon with coffee. It relaxes me.